Welcome back to the show. We are in our final segment of our two-part series with Joe Klein of Time Magazine. Joe, I want to talk to you about statesmanship and the state, the condition of statesmanship in this country today. What's your take? And give me a view historically, especially across the last 4 decades.
Well, I have a friend, Adam Walensky, who was a top aide to Robert Kennedy, who believes that television has ruined everything. And in context, he was talking about the NBA. But you could also argue that starting in 1960, politicians began to realize that the way you actually looked on television, whether you had a 5 o'clock shadow and sweated, could make a difference. Richard Nixon learned that the hard way. And by the way, people who listened to that debate thought Nixon had won it. People who watched it on television thought he hadn't. Thought Kennedy had, because he was cool and not sweaty. And over time, politicians began to hire people to tell them how to look on television. These same people then told them, hey, you could go one step farther and you could put your own message into a commercial. And it's kind of like fee-for-service medicine. These guys got paid by volume, the number of ads that they put on. And so you had to hire even more people, focus groups and polling and this and that and the other. And eventually, leadership became followship. It was following the results of your focus groups. Now, you'll see it from time to time. You'll see people who do things that aren't wise politically according to the numbers. I think it's arguable that with 80% of the public thinking that they liked their health care, Barack Obama acted courageously when he tried to do Obamacare. But with courage has to come wisdom. I could argue that George W. Bush was one of the most courageous presidents we've ever had. But was it wise to try and privatize Social Security and thereby have the bottom fall out of your administration? Was it wise to invade Iraq and to stay there the way we did? It's a real balance that you need. And with all these people jabbering at you and saying, oh, no, you can't do that. Because I've never seen a political consultant say, oh, yeah, go do the bold thing. It's always, no, you can't do that because it's going to offend this segment of, here we are back at marketing again, this segment of the electorate, and you need their votes. So you could see it from time to time. There are many politicians I admire tremendously who try to do the right thing.
Who in Washington has courage today, in your opinion?
Well, on my last road trip, I visited with this guy named Scott Ridgell, Republican in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And he signed Grover Norquist's no tax pledge. He was never going to vote to raise taxes. And then he started looking at the numbers. And he realized that historically, we spend, about 19.5% of revenues, of GDP on taxes. And the Bush tax cuts had us down at 16.9%. So we had to raise taxes if we were going to maintain government in its historic shape. And so he reneged on the no tax pledge. And he got an earful from Grover Norquist, and I'm sure that the right wing of his party is going to come after him. But it was a bold thing to do. And it's just that you see that less and less now.
What do, as you talk with elected officials, with politicians across the country, and especially in Washington, what do elected officials want?
They want to be loved. They want
everyone to like them.
The one thing that they want more than anything else is to make less phone calls, make fewer phone calls asking for money. I once had this hilarious, the funniest politician I ever covered was this guy who ran for Senate from South Carolina, Alex Sanders. And he allowed me to sit with him as he was making phone call after phone call after phone call, which is what these politicians do now instead of having public events. They spend most of their time dialing for dollars. And if the thing that they would most like is to make fewer, if any, phone calls. But I think that, most of them come with the best of intentions. Most of them believe in the things that they believe. But the greatest courage that you have to have now is the ability to compromise. And your money sources usually don't want you to compromise. And that is a pretty flagrant, serious problem we have in this country that is going to have to be handled by the electorate. It's going to have to be done by replacing those who won't compromise. We did a Time magazine poll. We asked people, tough wording, would you rather have a politician who compromises to get things done or sticks by his or her principles? Now in America, you'd figure sticks by his principles. We're Americans. 89% said they wanted politicians who compromise.
Well, it also depends on how you phrase the question. I bet you would get a different result if you said, between these two, which would you choose? A politician who sticks to his or her principles as much as possible, but is willing to compromise and does compromise, or a politician whose principles are identical to yours and is taking the position that I'm sticking to these principles and I'm not going to compromise.
See, I think
that would be a better question.
I don't know. I thought that the wording of ours was pretty tough, because you'd think that most people would go with principles. But most people now, the people I see out in the country now, are infuriated by the lack of compromise, by the fact that people aren't getting things done in Washington.
Even if that is true, we're compromising even less in Washington today.
Yes. And I think as I've said, I think that we in the media are a big part of the problem. I think the special interests are a big part of the problem. I think the political consultants and the need to have a message and speak in sound bites is a big part of the problem. And I think that the retribalization of the country is a big part of the problem. Now, those are pretty big structural problems that we're looking at, but I travel around the world a lot, and I just can't get myself to be pessimistic about this country, in part because of those young soldiers who I know are coming back, and all the other young people who I see out there, a lot of them really trying to do things to bust past the roadblocks that we've set up.
All right, well, on that optimistic note, I want to thank you very much for joining me, Joe.
My pleasure.
It's been a lot of fun. That was Joe Klein of Time Magazine. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
The Aaron Harber Show would like to acknowledge its supporters. Please thank them whenever you have the opportunity. A written license from USA Talk Network is required for any use of this program. To purchase a copy or footage from any program, please contact producer@harbertv.com. Please go to www.harbertv.com for more information on usage rights and licensing fees. Please contact us. We want to hear from you.